Well, today is 7th April 2020, and today is a World Health Day. And the WHO and HHO are combining to celebrate this day to acknowledge the doctors and nurses who are collectively the frontliners of the COVID-19 pandemic all around the globe. And in Ghana, there is a partial lockdown in Accra, Tema, and Kumasi to restrict the movement of the people in order to reduce the infection rate in Ghana. And as I speak with you, the infection rate in Ghana is about 287 people, and 5 people are dead and 31 people have recovered. And well, in UK, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been infected with this COVID-19 virus and is now receiving treatment at a hospital at the ICU. And unfortunately, the life partner, who is also pregnant, has been infected with this virus and also responding to treatment. And well, now the governance is in the hands of Dominic Raab, who will take over until Boris Johnson returns from the ICU.
Britain's Prime Minister spent the night in intensive care getting oxygen, but Downing Street says he's not on a ventilator. Late last week, Boris Johnson emerged briefly from his residence to applaud health workers, but in a Twitter video admitted he wasn't well enough yet to end his isolation.
Alas, I still have one of the symptoms, a minor symptom of I still have temperature.
That was clearly an understatement. 48 hours later, Johnson was in the hospital. Early in the outbreak, he fronted the UK campaign to promote hand washing, but also boasted about shaking hands with coronavirus patients, which suggests multiple exposures. Johnson works to stay fit. He's a keen cyclist and tennis player, but he's also 55 years old and male, which elevates his risk of complications from coronavirus. His pregnant partner, Carrie Simons, had coronavirus symptoms too, but she's recovering. Boris Johnson has handed over the running of the UK government to Dominic Raab, who's the Foreign Secretary, as Britain passes another grim milestone in this pandemic. More than 5,000 people have now died here, although there is some evidence that the spread of the infection may peak this coming week.
Well, this COVID-19 pandemic has brought up a lot of conspiracy theories, including the truths and the facts. But today, we will not delve deeper into conspiracy theories. But on the Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Trevor interviewed Bill Gates, who is now surrounded with a lot of theories about how he was able to detect the viral invasion coming in the years ahead, where he gave a TED Talk speaking about this viral invasion and how come he as an individual got that knowledge before government and other people could have a clue of the whole thing. And this is the answers he gave to Trevor Noah and the audience of the Daily Show.
Bill Gates, welcome to the Daily Social Distancing Show.
It's great to be on.
Let's jump straight into the first question that everybody would want me to ask. You delivered a TED Talk where you predicted pretty much what is happening now. Now, thanks to the world we live in, that has sprouted a bunch of conspiracy theories, everything from Bill Gates invented this virus to prove himself right, or he knew it was going to happen and that's why he said it. Was that TED Talk about this virus, or was that a hypothetical that has now come true?
Well, I didn't know specifically that it'd be coronavirus and that it would hit in late 2019, but the goal of the talk was to encourage governments to make the investments so we could respond very quickly and keep the case numbers very, very low. And so sadly, this is not a case where, I feel like, hey, I told you so. Because we didn't use that time when it was clear as the biggest threat to kill millions of people, to have the diagnostic standing by, to be ready to ramp up a vaccine factory. A few things were done. Some countries, our foundation funded some work that will help with the vaccines now, will help with the diagnostics, but on most of what was called for, particularly in a New England Journal of Medicine article I did that went into way more specifics than I could in a short TED Talk, Uh, those things didn't get done, and so that's why it's taking us a long time to get our act together faced with this threat.
Here's a question I have. As an individual, how is it that you, as a non-government, knew this information and knew that it needed to be acted on, and governments and organizations that are specifically tasked with protecting people from this very thing either didn't have the information or ignored it? What do you think happened there? Because I know you interact with governments, you talk to organizations like the CDC, like the WHO. What went wrong?
Well, there are lots of individuals who were as worried as I was. You know, people like Dr. Fauci, who've been through various epidemics. And so when we had Ebola, Zika, SARS, MERS, we were lucky that they didn't transmit very easily. They weren't these respiratory viruses where somebody's not very symptomatic and is still walking around can spread the disease in some cases to literally dozens of people. So the respiratory transmission, particularly because world travel is so intense, that's where I show the simulation in that speech and say, this keeps me up at night, more than even war, which is no small thing. And yet, in terms of being systematic about, okay, let's run a simulation and see how we reach out to the private sector for tests or ventilators, and what kind of quarantine would we do? And as we enter into this, we haven't practiced at all. And so you can see it's, you know, every state is being forced to figure things out on their own. And it's very ad hoc. It's not like when a war comes and we've done, 20 simulations of various types of threats, and we've made sure that the training, communications, logistics, all those pieces fall into place very rapidly.
China, who seemed to recover from this pandemic, is now receiving reported cases of people testing positive after they have recovered from the hospitals. And scientists are wondering what actually is happening. And in a normal patient infected with a virus, the body builds up an antibodies which fight against this virus or bacteria. And when it gets rid of it, the antibodies goes into hibernation or goes to sleep to await for the reinfection of this specific virus or bacteria. But in the case of COVID-19, the situation is different. It is unusual. And scientists are wondering there could be many possibilities resulting in this. And they are suggesting that probably the nucleic test is not too reliable to test for the recovered patient, or there is a mutation of the COVID-19 causing the reinfection, or there is a very low concentration of the virus in the recovered patient, which makes it difficult to test for the recovered patients again. And this is what is resurfacing in China, and Chinese government has taken it upon themselves to test for every foreigner, especially the blacks who lives in China. And this is what is happening in China about the COVID-19. And I entreat everybody to stay in your homes and wash your hands and adhere to the precautionary measures. And if there is no need to go out, you have to stay in your homes. Peace.